In that process of figuring out what to do, in that phase, we actually have a week-long seminar where we take you through each of the 6 subtracks. There are 6 subtracks under what in phase 3. For example, 85% of veterans end up taking unemployment. Now, you would think it's as easy as saying, okay, well, I just want to get a job. After the employment track, you could look at entrepreneurship. We take you also through the education subtrack to give you some options there. We take you through the retirement track, international track, and we have a special track for our wounded warriors that allows them to look at all the job opportunities that are out there solely for wounded warriors. A lot of times there's a misconception that both wounded warriors don't think that America, corporate America wants them because of their disability. Some of them visible, some of them not. But also that corporate America is not sure how to handle a wounded warrior, an amputee, or someone with PTSD, someone who has to have his dog next to him all the time. But that's not true. I've talked to corporate America, not all of it, to companies, and they're just eager to know how. How can we get these veterans? Because they know what's inside is what really matters.
And Cesar, on that point, and we invite everyone to go back and watch some of the episodes. On a previous episode, Cesar, we addressed an article that talked about how companies are trying to build their HR departments to build some sort of veteran support program to help hire veterans. And corporations are navigating this as best they can to do that. So that's good to know for veterans that corporate America is starting to think more about them. The larger boys, they've been doing that for a while. But that trend is now starting to go into smaller markets and smaller businesses as well. So that's very, very positive.
You know, we don't get any sponsors, at least not yet, and we don't have any preferences to who we recommend. But
if you're interested, give us a call.
One of the companies that I really felt had a great military veteran hiring program was Amazon. I mean, early on they figured out, and part of their success was a guy who was the lead element in that effort. I won't tell you your name unless you ask me through our channel. But he was so exceptional at building the brand for military veterans to come to Amazon. And it was a really great marketing campaign. And I remember interviewing with him, and he asked me a question. He said to me, what's the name of what is the name of the Navy ship named after a Marine gunnery sergeant? Exactly. How am I supposed to know? I'm a Marine.
No idea.
I'm not a Navy guy. I bet you there's a lot of my Navy fellow veterans out there that are like, come on, Cesar, how can you not know that? But that kind of caught my eye. And he had a line going out for all the candidates who wanted to interview with them. Again, his success in building that part of the Amazon brand was key because Amazon is a company that has grown into being efficient. It's all about time. It's all about the time it takes for products to go from a shelf to your door. And I was able to really go through that interview process and go to Lexington to do an actual on-site interview. And I was impressed with the process. There are also other companies that actually put a lot of effort into their veteran recruiting program. So with all that said, I also want to give a shout out to the state of Virginia, who has the Virginia Values Veterans, a great program that ensures that veterans get an opportunity to be hired by companies who are actually certified by the V3 program that the previous governor, actually implemented. And I'm very hopeful the new governor will continue that program. We'd like to invite the governor to come onto the show to tell us about his plans for military veterans and their transition from the military into the workforce. We'd love to help you out, Governor. Tell us how we do it. We are politically agnostic. We like to make sure that we get as many veterans hired in Virginia.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Cesar, before we jump into a little bit more on these tracks, we actually have a very important question that has come in.
Okay, who's
Michael? Michael has asked the question.
What does Mike want to know?
He says, I have transitioned out, but trying to balance purpose and financial stability in a rural area is difficult. Any ideas to help with this?
He says purpose.
Define
his purpose, right?
Balance purpose and financial stability.
Yeah, so here's a classic example of a veteran. Now, very few times will you hear somebody like that say his purpose. That's a man who has stopped to consider who he is. So he's understanding the concept. And Mike, you're out there. I want to talk to you directly because your question transcends services. I don't know what service you came from, but I assume that you really had to ask yourself who I really am. So your purpose, you're asking a question that is very deep. And how do you balance that with financial stability? I will tell you that first, if you know already who you are, the only question that should be lingering in your mind is, how do I monetize what I do? You can monetize it through profit means or non-profit means. Don't be too shy about making money, because making money sometimes produces the opportunity to help others. And your challenge in a rural area is that there's a limitation for what options you have. So one of the advices that I would give you is to either consider starting a nonprofit. Because when I hear you say that you're struggling with purpose, I assume that you have a focus. You want to have a purpose to something that you want to do, that you have been called to do. And how do you monetize that? I recommend that you start a nonprofit, and that's essentially under our employment or entrepreneurship track. Believe it or not, starting a nonprofit is not that difficult. The application process can be long, but you can start a nonprofit today. You can do it through your local county, or you can do it online. And again, another shout out for another company, LegalZoom.com is one of them, but you can Google any place that can do it online. It'll cost you a little bit. The application process will be long, but you can start operating as a nonprofit right now. What you won't have is a certification from the IRS that allows you to actually continue to operate as a nonprofit. If the IRS rejects your application, then you're going to have to pay taxes on the money you collected. But if you know your purpose and you can write it down as a mission statement, then you can develop a nonprofit around it. Because there'll be people out there who will want to support you and fund the purpose that you're trying to follow. Now, that's one path. If what you mean by purpose is that you want to be a professional in a certain track. So again, Mike, I'm assuming that's what you want to do, but let me talk to the other side of the folks out there, the other Mikes. The ones that are saying, no, that's not the purpose I mean, Cesar. I'm talking about, how do I go after what I know I can do as a professional in a rural area with financial constraints? So to me, that says that you have to find out in your area all of the business opportunities that are available to you, whether it is as a professional working there in the employment track or as an entrepreneur. And when I talk about these sub-tracks, I'll tell you what I mean by entrepreneur or consultant. But you define your purpose and you seek the financial means to that purpose by analyzing, assessing, and then executing courses of action. I'll be happy to help you out on that front, but I think that it's obvious that you already know who you are, or if not, that you're close to figuring that out based on what you're telling me. I'd like to hear your comments back about what I said. If you don't agree, call me out on it. If you agree, let us know. I don't know if we have any questions out there from our live audience.
We do actually, and it's actually really good because it goes back to your title on LinkedIn.
Check.
Okay, so the question comes from James. How do I match my military title and rank with the civilian workplace?
Love that question, James. I probably set you up for that question, so thank you wherever you are in the world. Now ask James to tell us, if you don't mind, the military title that you have, or give us an example, because I can give you a couple of them. If James responds, maybe we can get some feedback on that. In the meantime, I'll try to fill in the gap with the answer. A lot of our fellow transitioning military veterans have that problem. How do I translate my military title into an effective civilian title?
Yeah.
And I tell people, number one rule, don't embellish, don't lie. Right? Don't try to lie. Number two, cut the acronyms. Oh, I wish I had kept my LinkedIn profile when I first cut out. It was full of acronyms. It's like a whole different language. Right? When I said I work with the JTF Omega in Colombia under Southcom, which was part of Marfor South, and I was attached to the AAA AV unit, third tracks. Nobody understands that in the civilian world.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what you did. If I had said, I'm a planning and operations officer, you can kind of get a little more sense for that. Now, here's a confusing title that some of us use. I'm a communications officer. What do you think when I say communications officer?
I think radio.
You think radio?
That's what I think.
You know what people in the civilian sector that are in telecom are thinking? PR? Is it PR? Is it public relations?
Yeah, because if you go get a communications degree, that's what they're thinking.
Exactly. So be careful, because in the military, communications is radio. It's now also internet. We call it C4I. And again, another acronym. Oops, there I am. I should have a penny jar right here.
Yeah, right.
To make sure I put a penny in there.
That's right.
Be careful. And the way that I do this, I wish I had a board. We're going to have to get a board here so I could actually use a board. The way that I try to do this for us is I try to draw a step ladder with 5 steps. And I ask my fellow military veterans in this exercise to put the last 5 titles along with duty stations and ranks that they have. So under the steps, they have the 5 steps, and at the bottom of those steps, so if you have, sorry to make this graphic depiction. So
Upside
this
down.
is a step.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm using this.
Okay.
If you have the steps right here, right? The idea is that right here you write your rank, your title, and what it is that you did. And the next step, you do the same thing. What I'm going to ask you to do at the top of the step is to come up with 3 ways that you can translate that. Now, who do we go talk to get their input about how this reads? Who do we talk to? 3 to 5?
Your
personal.
Board advisors.
Boom.
Board advisors.
You get a bottle of water later on me. I got your water. Exactly. It's because you want people who have nothing to do with the military per se to give you an idea of like, what do you think that reads? When I tell you that I was a motor transport specialist, what are the things that I can do? Think about motor transport specialist. That's a logistics professional. You're in logistics, you're in transportation. There's nothing wrong with labeling yourself as a logistics professional, a transportation professional.
Because now when I hear that title, I think of a driver.
Right.
That would be my first
And
go-to.
that's exactly what it is.
Okay. Yep. So
motor transport is a category, a labor category in the military. We call it Marine Occupational Specialty. Some of them call it career designation, but that's a profession that I can easily translate for our viewers. Did James come back with his title?
He did, and he brought up another great point too. So we'll address the title first. He says he was an operations chief in Master Guns.
Check.
And his MOS was Air Command and Control.
So that's 3 things that you just got there.
Yep.
Operations chief. Now remember, in the civilian sector, who do we call chiefs?
Managers.
And
CEOs, depends on which level, right?
Right there, C-level executives. Chief Executive Officer, Chief Operations Officer, Chief Information Officer, right? So when we think of chief in the civilian sector, chief in the military, totally different terminologies. Master Guns, what's a Master Guns? What, is he a Master of Guns? That's what that 22-year-old Google is gonna think when you try to put that in your resume. He'll say, you're a Master Guns? There are no guns allowed on the Google campus. Right? He's going to you're not going to even get the interview.
Right.
So a Master Gunnery Sergeant, right, which is a rank of E9 in the Marine Corps. And E9 can translate into all the services. And so that's the rank. And then he was, you said, Operations Chief, Master Guns in Air Traffic Control.
Air Command and Control for MOS.
Air Command and Control.
Yes.
Now, Air Command and Control is different than Air Traffic Control. So Air Command and Control, now you're going to start to look at different, this is why Phase 3 is critical for you. You can't get the titles and what you want to do until you figure out all of these areas, these tracks that we have in the what. Now, in the employment track, which is what you're looking at, and you're talking about Air Command and Control, we need to define what exactly did you do in the Air Command and Control unit, branch, division, wing. I mean, all those things are very, see, you have to piece it out, James. I think that what you have to try to do is say, okay, I was in Air Command and Control. Doing what? Operations Chief. So your operations manager at an Air Command and Control unit, which translated to Airport Authority, Port Authority, Management of Transportation. You can go to rail, right? Now, that's just a direct translation to it. What I would suggest, this is one of many options. If you were in the half-day seminar that we have on LinkedIn, where we go from LinkedIn 101 to LinkedIn Advanced for professionals, we walk you through the whole gambit. And we make sure that at the end of the half a day, you have a distinctive title and a summary, which is critical to LinkedIn, to make sure you can promote yourself effectively and brand yourself with a lot more effectiveness. But I would put operations manager, comma, slash, dot. And if you want to stay in the industry of air or air transportation or airports or airlines, then you put operations chief, air management or air traffic management or airline industry. This is one of many, and again, I love to work off the cuff because it really shows the difficulty, even that I have, as I've done this for hundreds and hundreds of veterans, to try to define what it is that they do in the military, to translate into civilian sector. Now, take that and dissolve everything I said, and let's look at it at a broader perspective, from a business opportunity. I'm going to pitch again, onward to opportunity, where you have a business track. Now you can be an operations manager. Now that you have done Air Command and Control, you have three pieces. You have done it in the air environment, so that's all air assets. You have done it at a command, so that means that you've been part of a command staff, so you're in the management level. And then controls, which means that you understand process. So process management, right? Critical. It would naturally show that you should go for a PMP certification, Program Management Professional certification, operations management, because what you do can translate into several industries. Sometimes, again, we get stuck in what we want to do because that's what we did. You were in air operations, therefore you're going to try to go in the same industry. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you want to do something totally different, but you have management skills, you have operations skills, you have process improvement skills. And when it comes to air assets, there's something called NATOPS, right? And NATOPS are the manuals that rule everything that they do in the air command, from rules on how to take off, how to fly, and how to land, and everything in between. I'm simplifying, right? Yep. The NATOPS rule that area of defense. And they're very strict, very organized, incredible responsibility, and absolute attention to detail with every aspect of air management. So there's a lot of stuff that you got there, but to answer your question in the simplest form, operations manager, right? Yep. And then you pick the industry. Because one of the things that I get a lot of industry leaders, and I'm going to give a shout out to DHL. DHL is seeking professionals in all of their units. And they're very interested in hiring military professionals in logistics and operations because they've identified something very interesting that a lot of industries are still trying to catch up. Military personnel are good at least two things: operations and logistics. It is inherent in everything we do. And DHL, who's at the leading edge of their industry, they're eager to find professionals that understand that and are able to adapt quickly to the surge that happens when a plane lands, has to be offloaded, has to get back in the air. And that's just one of the tracks that they have. They have several tracks that they're interested. I went to see them in Miami at their headquarters. Incredible people. The HR department, absolutely, and the recruiting department, absolutely. They're excited about hiring veterans, and we're going to bring them up for our March event.
Great.
But that's one industry that can really take on an operations manager / logistics manager and really excel.
What's it going to take to be successful? That is most likely a question on the minds of many of you. There's another question that I also hope to address with Cesar. Why is this important? Why is this important to active duty as well as those who have transitioned out and they're still in those early stages of trying to figure it out? Why is it so important?
A lot of people don't know this, but the largest unemployment group within the military are those 20-something to 30-something. And I say that broad because it changes. Very high unemployment. I talk a lot about the Marine Corps perspective of it because that's what I know. So I'm gonna address it in that sense. The Marine Corps is a young force by design. So every 4 years, what they call first termers, they have to be either re-enlisted or they have to get out. Did you know that 3 out of every 4 Marines have to get out? We only keep 1.
Wow.
There is a sobering piece of information. The Marine Corps is a young force by design. So every 4 years we recycle 3 out of 4 young guys, and then we bring in new blood.
Wow.
And so if you see the structure of our force, it's a lot of young folks, and then they start to get older as the force continues to mature and be more professional. So the second term realignment, the career military folks have to compete in those first 4 years. So imagine a little door at the end of a big hallway that keeps just closing in on you. And a lot of us don't know that when we join, right? Now extrapolate that into all the other services. You have to compete to get to re-enlist. And so I realized in my thesis in Monterey for my master's program that there was a lot of wasted time between the time that you recruit an individual and the time that they go to training. In those 3 months or 6 months, depending how long it takes, people drop out because they want to do something. People want to work. And so in that process, I also realized that, well, in the military, we are spitting out these great professionals that they have now been trained, groomed, and developed, and nobody is picking them up. And so I realized that there was a need for this at a larger scale than just a 1-week transition program. And why is that? It takes 13 weeks to make a Marine enlisted. It takes 6 months to take a civilian and make him a military Marine officer. That's just the basics. Basic Marine infantry officer. 6 months. On the other end, you got 1 week to get out.
Let's look at this statistic Cesar discusses. The largest unemployment group within the military is comprised of those in the age bracket of the 20s to 30s. This begs the question, how are we embracing our military veterans in the civilian workforce? While I may not have the answer to that question, I was curious about how the Military Veteran Transition Playbook program addresses this issue. So I'm sensing a gap. How does this program aim to fill that gap to what's currently offered?
So the playbook takes an approach of first helping veterans decide when you get out. Like I told you, there's a first term realignment. So we have right there at the 4-year mark an opportunity to help veterans figure out what to do early on. And before they figure out what to do, we want to help them discover who they are and when they should do it. Then the next time that you see the statistical analysis, and I say this because I was my degree in Naval Postgraduate School was in manpower systems. So you figure I was able to analyze data of how populations move through the military. At what year marks are our veterans getting out in masses? See, that's what we don't get to study enough, right? We know unemployment rates and we look at this on a monthly basis. But when we look at military personnel, how do we know when the military is having big masses of people exiting the military? And when, well, they happen at 4 years. They happen again around the 7-year mark. And then they start to happen again at the 13-year mark. In the bigger, you know, when you see the spikes, right? At least in the Marine Corps, again, this can be added, this can be adapted to every military branch. But those surges in those gaps allow you to see when and how a military member should be supported in their transition. And if we can align a program like the MVTP to really capture them in the right lane and bring them in on the right phase so they can develop their playbook. See, because that's what I learned at the end of those 10 years. It wasn't that one transition program taught me something. I went to the transition program in Pendleton. I went to the one in Iwakuni, Japan. I went to the one in Quantico. And I went to 2 other ones. I can't remember the names right now. But I realized that I was gathering information that it was different. And so I now had a playbook. I figured out that there was a lot of components to my strategy that needed to be studied, analyzed, developed, filtered, and then try to pick the course of action that best fit my family, my time in the service, my rank, my position, all of these factors that really make a composite. So this playbook fills a gap that a lot of veterans struggle with when they're up at night. I talk about what keeps you up at night, and they're unable to figure out, why can't I do what my buddy did when he transitioned? How come he looked like he figured it out? He didn't. Nobody has it figured out. But the MVTP allows you to really put things into the mind of a veteran. We understand phases, levels, approaches, milestones, objectives, tasks, and that's the mission, to try to get through the program in a phased approach. Start by figuring out when, then figure out who, then what, then how, then where, and then execute. It's something we understand, and it helps us really adapt our strategy to say, okay, now I know where I fit in. I think that gap will be filled a lot more effectively once we have more support from the services, as well as more integration among programs out there that are really, really good. There's a lot of programs that are really good, and I hope that they join our MVTP program.
Cesar mentions a lot of programs out there that are really good. He highlighted one in his last episode.
All right, so before I begin, I also want to talk about Onward to Opportunity. I met with John today. John Gucci Malfitano is the program manager of this awesome program called Onward to Opportunity, or OTO. And this program is a program that allows veterans to get free training in 3 tracks. We got customer service excellence, business management, or information technology. And they partner up with another program called Virginia Cyber Training Pilot,
yes,
I believe.
Yeah, I believe so.
Onward to Opportunity is a national program, so you don't have to be in Virginia to take advantage of this program. You can be anywhere in the world, actually, and if you are qualified, meaning they have to verify that you are DD-214, your DD-214 is good to go, that you got an honorable discharge, and you're actually in transition, and you can certainly take this training. And so this is the awesome thing about this. You take this training, which is free, and then you do 2 pre-test exams. And then when you got to go for the certification, which costs money, it's free as well. This is an amazing program, and John is leading it. I'm very proud of what he's doing. I'm very supportive of what he's up to. We're going to have him here on one of our shows to talk about the program in more detail, because I don't want to give you the wrong information. But you got to go to Onward, the number 2, Opportunity dash VCTP. That's Victor Charlie Tango Papa.org. And you can begin your certification program. I'm very, very excited about that program. I think it's an awesome program for veterans, and I wanted to make sure he's networked into our program tonight.
Yes, absolutely. And Cesar, as we've learned about Onward to Opportunity, you had the great opportunity to meet with them, all about connections.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Just their program and to be able to be tied into a National Career Service, Hire Heroes USA, and to be able to get that opportunity to have that sit-down interview with companies that are hiring today for the fields that you have, that's
the value of the
unbelievable.
program. It's such a holistic approach, right? They give you the training, they get you certified, and then they put you in front of hiring professionals and companies that can actually take you right on the spot.
Yep.
I mean, that's an amazing program. They started it this year, 2017, and they're about to meet their goal. They got to have 200 folks. I think they're up to 130. Sign up today. Sign up before the end of the year. There's open enrollment going on right now. Like I said, it's onward, the number 2, opportunity-vctp.org. Do we have it up on the screen?
Yes, yep,
Perfect.
yep. Just look on the screen, onward to opportunity-vctp.org.
The Transition Success Podcast. We're here with Carl Savino, founder and president of Corporate Gray. Thank you again for being here. I've been very, very pleased to have you with us today and talk about all these things regarding transition for our veterans. Now we're in the segment of the Corporate Gray job fair. Tell us about the next few job fairs that you have coming up.
The next 2 job fairs on February 14th on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
We'll be running a Corporate Gray military-friendly job fair at the Virginia Beach Convention Center. Then on March 23rd, here in Northern Virginia, our job fair will be held at the Army-Navy Country Club in Arlington, Virginia. Job fair hours are 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And we have an employer panel discussion here in Northern Virginia from 8 to 9. And down in Virginia Beach, we have a Virginia Employment Commission and the Transition Assistance Offices give a 1-hour presentation before the job fair. So from 8 to 9, you have the opportunity, job seekers have the opportunity to go get some additional actionable advice prior to the event.
Right.
Again, job fair hours 9 to 12:30.
The most important question, Carl, is there going to be breakfast?
There'll be coffee.
Hoorah! That's it. Typical military style. You know, get a good cup of joe. So we're going to join you at the Virginia Beach job fair.
I look forward to that.
I hope we'll have the opportunity to engage some of your transitioning veterans there. Now, here we are getting ready for the job fair, the Corporate Gray job fair. Tell us what to do before, in preparation for the job fair, while we're at the job fair, and what to do afterwards.
Okay, let's start with before. Before the job fair, the first thing that I suggest is you get your professional wardrobe in order and lined
Check.
up.
Check.
You want to be, I like to say, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression.
Absolutely.
So make sure you make that investment in your professional wardrobe. You've got to look, again, as I said, your professional best. Secondly, bring a pen and paper with you to take notes. Again, you're going to be interacting with a significant number of companies in a relatively short period of time. It's important that you write down briefly about what interactions you've had with those companies so that after the job fair is over, you can refer back to your notes.
Check.
You also want to bring many copies of your resume, right? So when you meet with those companies, they're going to ask you for a copy of your resume. So make sure you do that. And then fourthly, I always recommend that you plug the names of the companies that are coming to our job fair into LinkedIn to see who you're connected to.
Very useful.
And make sure you contact them in advance and ask for their assistance to help you identify a position or two that you both think is a good fit or are a good fit for you based on the skills and experience that you bring to the table. At the same time, you're leveraging the skills and the knowledge and the experience of that veteran who's already working for that company. Who is better positioned to assist you than a fellow vet who's working for that firm, who can help you identify some positions, and then at the job fair, make sure you talk to those opportunities. Right?
Before you go into the actual piece of the job fair, Carl, is there anything in the book that will help veterans right before the job? Any specific? I know the book is valuable in its entirety, but what can you point to that will help a veteran say, okay, before the job fair, I got to read this chapter, this section, or this paragraph?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up because we have a chapter in our book where we include information about preparing for a job fair. We think it's important you read the chapter. We offer several different suggestions. Also, we have suggestions on our website. So we have
in your blog as
our
well,
blog
right?
as well, and
Now,
our monthly newsletters.
Sorry, does the blog follow the job fairs in preparation for the job fairs, or they're independently, consistently developed to have a certain theme?
They're more independent.
Okay.
Each blog has a different theme. So certainly some of the blog's entries that we have written over the years are focused on job fairs.
Okay, thank you. So now, talk to me about, I'm at the job fair, and by the way, I've been to the corporate grade job fair. It is very easy to process in. You get your badge. Everything is well laid out. The employers are all around. It's like a typical effective military operation. You've done a great job at growing that.
you.
I'm sure you and your team, which you have a lot of people behind you.
Yes, it's a team effort.
Do a lot of great work. But tell us about what to do once we're there.
Well, one of the things you're going to do when you get to the job fair, you'll get a copy of our employer directory. It's going to include a map that shows you where
good.
all the companies are located. So you might start by walking around the room to see where the companies are located and develop some type of plan. I like to say have a group
like
of
that.
A companies, B companies, C companies.
Excellent advice.
Know which companies you want to meet with first, then second, and then later. I think it's important you meet with all the companies, as you never know where that right opportunity may be.
Right.
Small, medium, and large type companies all have different pros and cons.
So I got my A list, my B list, my C list. Tell me what are the do's for the job fair?
One of the do's, I think, is maybe start with that B list first. Get a feel for the dialogue.
Good point.
Get experience.
Warm up.
Warm up a little bit. Maybe you don't talk with the companies in whom you're most interested first. Start with your B companies.
Let's go to OJT. Just get prepared for the bigger job interviews.
Right? And make sure you've prepared the questions that you want to ask the employers. Because remember, it's a dialogue and not a monologue.
Excellent point.
So when you meet with those company recruiters, they're there to find out your background, what you bring to the table, and where you want to do it. So make sure you understand and can respond to the question, tell me about yourself. Right? If you start with the question, tell me about yourself, I think that's really where you want to put your initial focus in terms of your prep.
Okay.
But at the job fair, I think it's important to be your professional best. Again, to meet with as many of the companies as you possibly can and to always be positive.
Okay.
I also think it's important to network with other job seekers at the job fair.
Very good point.
You know, I spoke with one of my college classmates who came to one of our recent job fairs. He recently started with a new company. It was a result of the networking contact that he met at the job fair.
And I remember the job fair was very effective for me into getting follow-on interviews. Now tell me, now I'm done with the fair, I got all this information, what do I do?
Well, it's important, in my opinion, to write a thank you note. I generally recommend an email that you're going to send to those companies in whom you're most interested. That email should have 3 parts. Part 1 ought to be, tell them where you met them. I met you on February 14th at the Virginia Beach Convention Center.
Excellent.
Part 2, talk about a particular opportunity in which you have interest. Make sure you remind them as to what the requirements are. You told me the requirements for this position are A, B, and C. Here's how my military experience maps to that requirement,
point.
A, B, and C. And perhaps it could be volunteer experience that you did as well, right? But again, it's important that you help the recruiter understand how you're a good fit for their needs.
And part 3?
Part 3 is tell them you'll be following up. Not every hour of every day for next year, maybe 2 or 3 times over the next month.
Good point.
I also suggest staying in touch with the internal advocate within that company. Have someone who's a friend of yours, who's a fellow veteran, who's currently working for that organization. Remember the one I told you, that's the one you want to meet with initially to get some insight? Have him or her hopefully be able to tell you and track your progress in terms of the application, because oftentimes that recruiter can only tell you so much based on the legal requirements dictated by their attorneys.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Carl. I think that the most valuable piece of this, before getting the book and get that chapter on how to prepare for that job fair. In the job fair, get your A, B, and C list. I think that was really valuable, what he talked about. And number 3, that thank you note in 3 parts, that's excellent. I think that should be just trademark. I think it was absolutely good that you have it laid out for veterans, because that's how we do it. Now, do me a favor and tell me in 1 sentence or so, how do you gauge success?
Well, success from a job fair is based really on whether or not you're invited back for a follow-on interview.
Hoorah.
At the end of the day, the companies typically are not going to make hires on the spot. They have to vet you. They have to talk to your references. They have to check your security clearance often. So that's the litmus test. Am I invited back? If you're invited back for that follow-on interview, it's been a good job fair.
Carl, absolutely amazing. I love this segment because job fairs, they're all over the country.
They are.
And success in a job fair is typically whether how you prepare and how you engage. Welcome back to the show. We are here with Carl Savino from the Corporate Gray. He's the president and founder of Corporate Gray. He's also an Army vet, an author of the book that we just discussed. And we have, as you know, questions from our audience, Carl. And in every show, we try to invite our audience to ask us live questions. This is a pre-recorded show, as you know, but we want to give you an opportunity to talk to our viewers through Lynn's question. So Lynn asked the question, how do I ask someone to be a mentor? And I thought we can have a conversation about it by helping Lynn and our viewers, our military veterans. Number 1, how do you pick your mentor? And I always talk about the difference between an advisor / counselor, which is at the beginning of your transition when you don't know what to do, you don't know when you want to get out, you're talking to your peers, folks that are not even out sometimes, and a mentor who's already a seasoned professional, usually an executive, in a position that they can support you immediately, and to make sure that they appreciate and value the time of that mentor. So I always distinguish that by saying that you go to a mentor once you know when you want to get out, who you are, what you want to do, and how you're going to do it. So you're prepared to come to him or her with a plan, and that individual can effectively help you. So let's talk about how to select a mentor, then how to engage the mentor, what format, and ultimately what to do once that mentor responds, depending on their response.
Okay, yep, great question, Cesar. So first is how to select a mentor. And I think first the self-reflection to say, what is it that I'm looking to do as I transition? What's my goal? What are some of my areas of interest? So before I reach out to some prospective mentors, I need to understand where I'm coming from. So knowing where you are individually in terms of your job search and what you're looking to do as you transition, I think is very important.
Hoorah. Now tell me, how do I contact the mentor? Once I know that I've selected the person, the industry, or say when I was transitioning,
yes.
I remember reaching out to you through LinkedIn. Of course, you had probably hundreds of people reaching out to you. And I know we did another video together on LinkedIn where I invited you to be a speaker.
Yes.
But I wrestled with the thought, how do I contact? I mean, and to me, it was evident that the connection as a military professional would be a natural invitation for you to accept. But I really wasn't sure what to ask you. All I knew is that I had read your book, and I knew that I had more questions, but I wanted you to help me focus. And I remember even going to your job fairs.
Yes.
And you were standing next to, I can't remember if it was the VP or the director of USAA, down in Texas, and I just came up to you like, just a Marine coming up to another fellow veteran, Army vet, and say, hey, Carl, thanks for that contact on LinkedIn, and you were with him, and you introduced me to this gentleman. Ultimately, I ended up doing an informational interview with them down in Texas, but I wasn't clear as to how to engage the mentor at that time.
Yeah.
So help me show the viewers what not to do, but certainly how to do it more effectively.
Yes, the method that you choose in terms of how to contact that mentor, I think, is based in large part on your relationship. How well do you know that individual?
Hoorah.
So I think probably the safest route is to do it through LinkedIn. LinkedIn being the number one business professional tool here in the United States. So LinkedIn also gives that mentor the freedom to say yes or no. It may be the case that as much as that individual would like to be your mentor, he or she may not have the bandwidth to be able to really commit and do a quality job.
That's a good point.
So by reaching out initially through LinkedIn, you're giving him or her space to say yes or no.
Check.
Once he or she says perhaps yes, or depending on that response, then you've got to figure out how you're going to then respond and go to the next step. If the person to whom you reached out says, I'm sorry, I'm just not available to do so, ask them for someone else who they think would be a better fit to be that mentor.
Yeah.
Or it may be the case that he or she would be a mentor down the road. So just be sensitive to the person's time commitments and respond accordingly. But always be professional.
Check.
Regardless of his or her response, be professional, and hopefully you'll get the response that you're looking for.
Now tell me about a time when somebody reached out to you to be their mentor. And really for our viewers, what's critical to understand is if they're not ready, how do you tell them they're not ready? Or how do you explain to them as a mentor that they need to go back and really prepare so you can help them more effectively? Because obviously you have a network of folks that you can easily help any veteran with both through your book, through your job fairs, or online. But the most effective thing that a veteran can understand is how to come to you properly prepared. Give us the other perspective. Now you're the mentor looking at a protege. What do you want to make sure you see in a protege when they come to you? What is the best candidate protege that you have found in your years of experience?
Again, another excellent question, Cesar. I think the person who's really well prepared knows what they want to do. They know the skills that they bring to the table. They know what their experience is, and they have some insights into where they're going to take that next, how to take that next step. They know what industry they want to focus on, the types of opportunities that they want to pursue. I'm more than willing to talk to a veteran to say, have you considered this or that? Really, you want to look at it from many different perspectives, right? At the end of the day, in order to help the person who is going to be your mentor do a quality job, you need quality input.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I learned also as a mentor is that a lot of times you want to help veterans focus, and you feel like you can help them by either tell them to improve their resumes or improve their interview. Where can they go to get some of those basic skills?
Well, one place they can go is our Corporate Gray Series book. I like to think of our book, The Military to Civilian Transition Guide, as kind of a what color's your parachute tailored to that transitioning service member. This book represents a compilation of my experience, things that I did right, and things that I thought I could have done better. So at the end of the day, much of the advice that I have is included here in the book. I'd also point to our Corporate Gray blog. We have an excellent blog. It's done by my colleague, Karen Durkee. She does a quality job. We also send out a monthly e-newsletter from our website, Corporate Gray Online. So I encourage job seekers to create a free account on our website so that we can share our words of advice and, frankly, our electronic newsletter on a monthly basis that's chock full of tips and suggestions on an effective job search.
Tell our viewers how they can sign up, log in, subscribe to get that newsletter, to get that blog.
Very easy. They simply go to www.corporategray.com and they create a free applicant account. Once they've created that account, they'll get a monthly newsletter from us, again, providing them with suggestions on how best to effect a successful job search.
Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
And that's our segment on how can someone ask someone to be a mentor.